basically what you're seeing is God's judgment upon secular music in the workplace. People need to get back into their private prayer closet and cry out to God for forgiveness and wait upon Him to hear His personal voice. Essentially, the entire world needs a baptism in the worship of Jesus. Jesus needs to be known and talked about on the lips of our politicians. Basically, I could go on. There's even a dumb RCMP helicopter, police helicopter, flying around our neighborhood in the middle of the night, like an idiot. The person is lost. They have no idea what to do with their life, and it's all sin. They're disturbing the peace, and what they do is cursed, and they have no idea what to do with their life, except try and collect $1, and it's totally stupid, okay, and it's totally cursed. It just, in my lifetime, there has to be so much stupidity destroyed, and people have to repent of their dumb behaviors, and it's literally a meaningless existence. It's like you are not doing anything to promote the kingdom of heaven. It's like you're either bearing offspring that are headed for heaven and worshipers of God, or you are working towards the salvation of existing people. That's pretty much about it. I mean, cry out to God for what He wants you to do personally. Read the words of Jesus, get a sense of conviction and what you must do. And I really want a great awakening. Like, I just really want this entire Vanity Fair. We should have solved world hunger by now. We should have solved world evangelism by now. I don't know what's holding it back. I really don't know why there's so many dumb human behaviors still happening today. There is just, well, in the West there's indescribable vanity. There's indescribable just trinketry and entertainment. People need a revelation of heaven. They need a revelation of Judgment Day. They need a revelation of the rewards that come through sacrifice in this life. I think that's a big thing. A huge thing is that people don't, I mean, I want a greater understanding of what the rewards in heaven really are like. Well, the most important reward is the salvation of souls. But, clearly there's a massive godlessness problem everywhere in the world today. Clearly people are far from God. You know, God is a personal God. God is speaking all the time. So, if we don't know what God is saying right now, today, that's the greatest shame there is. Like, oh my gosh, there's not a single politician on the world stage today that says these words. I believe that this is what God is saying to me. I believe that this is what God is saying to us, and here is why I believe that, with a string of evidence behind it. That's danger zone. That's what you call humanism. It's called people trying to live life and trying to live life without God, without communication with God, without knowing that God speaks, without caring about what God has to think or say. It's called humans trying to live and survive and make it and succeed and find gratification without God. And that is death, because you were made for God. Got another word from the Lord that you are special is triple joy. But you got to cry out to God, and you got to desire His personal voice, and then it will start to come to you as you give Him large amounts of silent prayer time. And But this country has no idea where it's going because they don't know the voice of God. And that's the truth with you. That's the truth with every human that doesn't know where they're going. We're not spending enough time in our private prayer closet. And that's a big reason why this coronavirus thing is happening. God's saying no one is spending silent prayer time. No one's been doing it. Everyone's been running around like headless chickens, talking to humans, interacting with humans, and no one knows the voice of God. And it's dissatisfying for everyone, certainly for God as well. So, get in your private prayer closet, whether you're a prime minister or a 10-year-old. Get in your private prayer closet and stay there with your mouth shut until you know that you know that you know that God has spoken to you personally and you've actually written down, word for word, letter for letter, what he has said precisely. And don't come out and start talking to other people until you know exactly what God has said to you. And you're extremely confident in it for the amount of time that you've heard it. Essentially, everyone needs to shut up. Secular music needs to shut up. Essentially, everyone everywhere needs to shut up and wait upon God until they hear his voice and get it accurate, so confidently accurate that they write it down and put it up in their bedroom. Don't open your mouth. Don't make a single sound. I would say don't even do anything until you know the personal voice of God. Stop living your so-called life until you have heard the personal voice of God in your private prayer closet. Shut your mouth. God really doesn't want to hear you blab. He really doesn't. He wants to hear you shut your mouth and be silent with a desire to hear his voice, and you stay there for hours if you have to. Tell all your friends they don't know anything, because they really don't. It's like... We are suffering from a hemorrhage of human vocalization with no wisdom from the Most High God. It's indescribable vanity, indescribable hot air, and indescribable foolishness like never before, just because people aren't listening for God, to God, you name it. Every human, shut yourself in your private prayer closet with your mouth shut and stay there as long as you have to until you know that you've heard the personal voice of God speaking to you up here. He will not speak to you audibly. He will speak to you up here. And he will continue to speak to you up here as you give him more time in that silent prayer closet. Every day, all the time. He will continue to speak to you more and more up here until you really understand and you know what his voice sounds like up here. People really don't have that much to satisfy you. They really don't. God does. Entire human race, stop thinking about yourself. Stop thinking about all the humans that you know. Stop thinking about the entire nation of humans trying to do something together. Would you stop it? God is infinitely bigger than all humans, and he always has been. It's called prayer. It's called a real relationship with the real God that every human wants. Every man, woman, and child, turn off all of your crap. Shut your mouth and stay in a silent, dark room waiting for God to speak to you. Out of due respect, take a long time for him to start speaking and write it down when he finally does, out of respect. God cannot bear the sin of the world much longer. And that's why judgments are happening. Many people will actually be taken home to heaven soon. Many people who, yes, are saved or will get saved at the last minute, will be taken home to heaven soon because of the lack of God-pleasing living while they're down here on this earth. God simply can't bear it, and he won't. Okay, and that is why God takes people home to heaven. He says, you know what? Yes, you're a Christian, but there's not enough happening that should keep you down there. It's like, I got to take you home so that you can't live that way anymore. The wages of sin is death. People ultimately breathe their last because at some point, God actually says, I can't take this anymore. Judgment will fall upon humans great and small that don't seek the living God and desire his personal voice in their private prayer closet. I don't care if you're the Prime Minister of Russia, the President of the USA. Who cares? I don't care if you have money or don't have money. Okay? You need to desire the personal voice of God above everything else. It's called a relationship. It's called an actual personal relationship with God. You can't say that you have a personal relationship with God without knowing his personal voice and being able to prove it to me that you've heard his personal voice. Show me the math on the words that God has given you. Explain to me the glory of the Gematria behind the words that he's given to you. Do something that proves to me that you've actually heard the personal voice of God. Show me something that is beyond what I've ever seen. Okay? When humans actually start receiving real words from God and real things from God, it'll be obvious. No one will be able to deny it unless they're a flat-out idiot, or a flat-out antichrist, or a flat-out liar, or a flat-out lunatic. The human race is simply not looking good enough. We are not looking God enough. And it's unbearable. It's unbearable.